Welcome to the Paper Trail, where we follow the journey, my journey, through the world of a CEO of a mortgage note fund. I'm Chris 70, and after years of buying, managing, and selling notes with 70 investments, I'm here to share the real stories behind the deals. What went right, what went wrong, and what I wish I knew earlier. From non-performing loans to seller financing to private lending, this show is about more than strategies, about growing your business, learning to follow the paper trail, and doing the due diligence that separates the pros from the rest. Now, let's hit the trail running. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I want to talk about deals you don't do and how due diligence can save you tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. You hear many people who've been around real estate, and I've aged myself and say I've been 28 years in real estate, and some of the best deals you'll ever do are the ones that you don't close. So today's episode is about one of those. A deal that looked promising on the surface, but once we really dug into all the details, it was pretty clear this one was a extended lawsuit, rip your hair out, kicking and screaming child from pulling them out of Disney World type of fight. And I want to walk through how we caught it. Why walking away sometimes is the smartest move that you can make. Let's talk about the deal on paper. The non-performing note that was a construction loan. It was part of a large pool we were looking at. And the house was 50% complete. And the tape, which is the Excel spreadsheet, noted borrower slow on progress, needed more time / extension. So when you see that, you're thinking, okay, and this was an area that had been hit by a storm. So the house wasn't impacted by it, but the area was. So looking at it, at first glance, typical rescue situation, you give the person more time, maybe collect some extension fees, buy it at a discount, and let them finish the build, and then sell it back on the open market. That's typical what can happen in these situations. We've seen this and done this on many occasions. Let's peel back that onion a little bit and talk about what the due diligence told us. So we get the collateral file. We start digging into the information and the servicing notes. And the servicing notes had comments in there about an HOA lawsuit. HOA had filed a lawsuit. No paperwork or documentation within the collateral about this, but it was in the servicing notes. Mechanics liens were in the servicing notes. So we definitely wanted to pull title, see what was going on with those. There's comments about permit issues and other items that really made this one be very hot, very hairy, I should say. And as we started digging through this, essentially our first inclination is, okay, a lawsuit with the HOA is not something you want to be in. Sometimes HOAs can demand the entire property be torn down and rebuilt. And then as the lender, you really aren't going to recover from that. Dive into a little bit about what the due diligence documentation really showed us. So first, a lot of sloppy note and mortgage documentation. And I say that because there's a loan agreement with the borrowers, and they had an LLC with 3 members and a husband, wife, and a third person, which I think was a child. And the personal guarantee, they only had the child sign, which A is, okay, throw them under the bus, but in the same token, a 22-year-old kid doesn't have any assets, whereas the parents had 5 or 6 other properties. So that was red flag number one when we were looking at this documentation and who was underwriting this. And clearly, it appeared this was an institution that uses a lot of brokers. And we see this a lot on these types of loans. Brokers just push a deal through and get their commission. And the lender sometimes has no idea what they're really doing. They're just trying to get the money out the door. So we dive into due diligence. The title report, yes, showed $150,000+ in mechanical liens on this property, which the borrower had been getting money, and they had got about $200,000 so far of the construction, but the lender was never collecting the lien. What's called the lien waiver, confirming the borrower has been paying the subs. But where was the money going is the first thing. So clearly mismanagement by the lender in regards to giving money, not tracing it and following where it's going. Then we got copies of the lawsuits from the HOA and what was really going on. And what happened is the borrower actually owns a home like 3 houses over within this community. And the property is owned by one of their LLCs. And they went and got a building permit in specific name, but it didn't match the owner of the property. Because they, on the building permit, which I don't know how this got by, they basically said XYZ owns a property, XYZ is getting the permit, which as a homeowner, yes, you can pull your own permit. Problem is the city never confirmed that they actually own the property. So let me give an example. I say I own 123 Main Street, which I don't. My 70 Investments owns it. I go and pull a permit under Chris 70, say I'm the GC, as an owner getting the permit. Because Chris 70 doesn't have a license. But actually, I don't own the property. So, city screwed up there. The lender, again, clearly should have picked this up. Did not. The HOA picked it up. The HOA turned around and sued and said, I'm out. You're building this thing as with an unlicensed contractor. You, not an owner occupant, and the person also was a GC, which was an unlicensed GC as well. So clearly a huge convoluted issue. So we ask the seller of the note, hey, we need more information on this. We're digging in. And at this point, we already know we're walking, but let's get the information more for educational purposes. This is sometimes not a bad thing, people, where like you look at something and you're going to walk on a deal. I'll ask for some information. Now, I wouldn't say go spend all this money. Ask for the information because it's a learning experience. We're digging in and getting all this information. And the sellers, the HOA is willing to work with you. So you could go foreclose on this thing and just finish the construction yourself. I don't know how many note investors out there have experience with new build construction. Actually, one. But people, when they get in note investing, get into it because they don't want to be responsible for the tenants, the toilets, and the termites. So why on God's green earth would a note investor want to take over a half-built property unless they have experience with it and they're getting it at a ridiculous discount? I will say, yes, we have done this in the past on a property that was a little bit cleaner, but also a property that, I'll give rough numbers, the builder probably spent $1.5 million in construction on the property that you get for 25 to 30 cents on the dollar. In this instance, they were like 50 to 60 cents on the dollar, which still not worth it. But even if it was, there were just so many issues. But what also really gave me a lot of hesitation was the person that was doing this, what experience did they have? Were they actually like a serious builder? Now, what was the actual status of this project? Was it even constructed properly? Now, in some of the other deals, yeah, there was a third-party GC and the property was well built. In this instance, I have no idea. So, really crazy type of deal. Interestingly enough, when we walked, this seller came back to us and was like, "Why are you walking?" And they're like, "Is it a price issue?" They clearly wanted this off their books. So could we have bought it at a deeper discount? Sure. But we would have spent months, probably even a year, fighting the HOA. Even though the HOA might have been okay, I don't know if they're okay. But I really wasn't in the process of even taking the time. Because here's the other component to this. I'd have to get somebody in there to finish it. But the guy who I'm taking this from lives 2 doors down. Every time I send a sub there, he's probably going to walk over to property and then complain about everything or tell them what's going on, try and kill us from finishing this project. But also, and the project has reputation and stigma sometimes to it. Like in this case, the guy wasn't paying the subs. You're not going to get those subs back to finish. So you have to start basically all over. And this was one that, how much could we make on this deal? Let's say it was you could make $100,000 on this deal, buying it for $100,000, whatever the case may be. Up for me, that's not even at a 50% return because it's going to take years. The upside isn't there. It's just not there. Downside, way too high. Why would I want to take one of our asset managers and also myself, because I'm the one with the most experience on the construction side of things, suck our time away on a $400,000 home at the end of the day to fight this fight? Well, that's one thing also that when you're looking at some of these super hairy deals, or you're looking at something that is a lower value asset, understand the time it's going to take. Early in my career, this is one of the mistakes I would make is I would try and squeeze every penny out of every deal, realizing I was spending way too much time and effort on that one deal, basically not make anything, where if I just let it go, even if I lost a few bucks, spend that time on the other assets, be much better off. For example, watch a video this weekend on management and team efficiency. And what they're talking about is how people sometimes spend too much time on stuff they're bad at, trying to get better at it. And compared to spending time on stuff they love that they're good at to get great at it. And most people do the former, where you really should be doing the latter. Take what you're good at and be great at it. The stuff that, excuse the phrase, you suck at, get some help or find somebody that enjoys doing that. That's how you build a great team, is not by doing everything, but understanding what is the most efficient and best use of time for everybody. This is why, in this instance, we acknowledge that, walked away. And also, just remember, there's a difference between buying a challenge, in this case, buying a lawsuit. Because I looked at this, that we would have been buying a lawsuit. Fast. Honestly, without hesitation. So as I wrap up, here are 5 takeaways that I just want to mention and talk about on this episode. Remember, surface level diligence sometimes, I don't want to use the term useless, doesn't tell the story. we just relied on the tape, not gone through the servicing notes, we would have been toast. Nowhere would you have known about this lawsuit. The title report actually didn't show it. Sometimes they don't. In this instance, it actually didn't. Read the servicing notes. So important. Anything in an HOA, double the scrutiny. You got approvals, you got plans, there's litigation. There could be fines from the HOA. You can't assume everything is clean. Trust but verify. It's a property that needs some work. Remember, permitting issues aren't just paperwork. They can lead to demolition notices, potential teardowns, fines. If you're in Ohio, they're going to start fining you for grass, for windows broken, for lights broken. Understand, at a minimum, it could be six-figure construction liability. Fourth is personal guarantees are nothing without something backing them up. Never assume that the personal guarantee equals actual money to collect. What does that person have? Understand, as part of that due diligence, who am I dealing with? We've seen personal guarantees on loans we bought that borrowers have nothing else. But that's okay. But you just need to know that up front. Lastly, there's no shame in walking away. Passing on a deal isn't a failure. It's discipline. Don't feel peer pressured into closing. Now, make sure you have valid reasons to do it. But a deal like this, don't feel like you need to pump your chest and again, feel like I want to take on this challenge. Sometimes, mention from the outset, best deals, ones you walk away from. My final thought, good investors know when to lean in. Great investors know when to walk away. His business, saying no at the right time, save you more money and sanity than a dozen good note purchases. Thanks for listening. If you want to see some real world case studies of deals we closed, as well as the ones we walked away from, head over to 70investments.com. We just don't always show the wins. We also show hard decisions, because those are where real investors. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The Paper Trail. I hope today's insights help you sharpen your note investing strategies. If you found value in this conversation, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow investors. I'm Chris 70, reminding you to keep doing the work, trust the process, and always follow the paper trail. Until next time.